Kevin Haig.
Mr Speaker, I'd like to begin by heaping some praise on the officials who worked with the Select Committee on this bill. Both those officials who helped us out with the technical aspects of what is in fact quite a technical bill, but also those who worked on the extensive task of drafting the amendments to the bill and assisting us with that aspect of our work. The previous speakers have referred to the submissions that we received, and I'd like to say that I greatly appreciated those submissions. They were not great in number, but they were high in quality, and all made, I thought, useful and thoughtful contributions to the debate around the issue. So thanks to the submitters. There was I think as the chair of the Select Committee has indicated, a high degree of agreement from submitters on the central points of the bill, and where there was difference between submitters, it tended to be on issues that were not included in the bill. The third point I'd like to make is to say that it was a pleasure to participate in a discussion at the Select Committee that was non-partisan in nature, where actually I think all members of the committee were looking for the best outcome, and actually worked very well together, as I think the chair has indicated. A pleasure that's all too rare, I have to say. Members who all too rare in the House, as opposed to our fantastic Select Committee. Members will have noted from the track changes copy version of the bill that it differs very substantially from the bill that was initially introduced to the House. A simple bill was introduced, and the bill that has emerged from the Select Committee process is much longer and more complicated. And that reflects an interesting thing. And others have alluded to this fact, that this area of law is one that touches on deep and complex ethical and emotional issues, and a fast developing area of science. And things get very complicated very quickly in that field. The next point about that is that, as others again have alluded to, this is an area of science that is actually only recently addressed by law, and in my view, in the Green Party's view, is not yet well addressed by law. It was interesting in the first reading debate that a number of speakers actually referred to their belief that the Act had contained a provision requiring a review after a certain amount of time. And so it was very interesting to find, given that perception, that when we went back and looked at the Act in detail, that it did not include such a review provision. And I take the alternative view to that expressed by Paul Hutchison. I think that, as Steve Chadwick has said, that this, because of the complexity of the area of science that it touches on, is exactly the kind of situation where a review ought to be automatically built into law. And certainly in the Select Committee's report, I am one of some of us who believe that the Minister ought to conduct such a review. And I'm interested not only in the extent to which this Act has addressed the particular issues that it's intended to address, but also I'm interested in the scope of the Act compared with the scope of the area of assisted human reproductive technology, because that is now a very much larger scope than the Act covers. And those areas outside of the scope of the Act are now not addressed by law. and it seems to me, sir, that they ought to be. I'm going to return to that theme in my third reading speech on this bill. In relation to the detail of the bill, fundamentally, as others have said, the bill set out to clarify something that was unintentionally not clear in the original Act, and the Green Party absolutely supports that principle. We also believe that, if possible, legislation ought not to be retrospective, and there are ways that the existing law could be perceived as being retrospective. So that was certainly an important issue to address. I also take up the submission by Di Yates, because it was the one submission that really raised a concern about an aspect of the bill, a substantive concern, in her reference, as Paul Hutchison has noted, to the Select Committee's original consideration of the bill that became the Act. Because at that time, the evidence that was before the Select Committee suggested that the science was uncertain as to the length of time that gametes and embryos could be safely stored. And the committee satisfied itself on that point, that the science is no longer uncertain. The other significant change that the bill provides for is to clarify the relationship between E-cart and A-cart. We, the Green Party, also continue to support that change, although, as I raised in the first reading speech, we continue to have concern about the more fundamental issue, which is effectively a constitutional issue, in fact, and that is whether issues such as these ought to be addressed by guidelines rather than regulations. We believe that that's a really important issue, and we believe that the Act has it wrong, in fact. We favour a regulations approach because we believe that makes the law more certain, in fact, and that has to be a good thing. So we actually greatly preferred Di Yates' original formulation of the bill which became the Act. And it's appropriate in this debate that members do recognise the great contribution that Di Yates made to this area of law. It would have been a greater still contribution had her original bill been taken up by the House. That said, though, sir, the Green Party continues to support this bill and will vote in favour of it with pleasure.